Hey, in this edit I'm looking at how you can create an HDR photo in Photoshop. This example here I have different exposed photos, and then I've created this photo down here combining the two photos. Normally you take two or more exposures. A common one is 3 or 5, 7, 9, and then you combine them together, and I'll show you how you can do that in Photoshop. Why you'd want to create an HDR photo? Well, as you can see in the example here, I was in a cave, and if you take one photo at one exposure, you're either going to underexpose or overexpose because of the harsh lighting conditions. So in the cave it was very dark, and then you just had this white opening out here. So I had to take a few different exposures to be able to create the photo that I was looking for. I had to overexpose the scene to be able to capture all around in the dark areas, and then I had to underexpose by quite a lot in this case to just get the opening of the cave, and then I combined them both in Photoshop and created this. So I'll quickly show you. You just have to open up Photoshop, go to File and Automate, and merge to HDR Pro. This is going to ask for your source files, so just go to Browse and then find your files. I've just got mine set up in the HDR folder. So I'll just do the cave one first. So I'm just going to select the two photos, open and open. So it's now opened it up in HDR Pro. On the right here you have the mode, presets, and all the different sliders to adjust like the shadows, highlights, vibrance, color. You have the two photos or all your photos down here. So it gives you the different exposures. So normally I go to 32-bit. And then I open the photos in Camera Raw. Camera Raw is going to open now, and this is where I do most of the editing. Up the top here you have all the different pickers and say like the filters and the brushes, and then you have all the sliders and all the options here. Press auto, then it's automatically going to adjust the two photos. So that doesn't really look too good there, so what I need to do is bring out more of the highlights around the cave. So I'm just going to add a filter in the middle. I'm going to increase the exposure. Inside this circle here, nothing's happening. It's just outside of this mask. If you did want to reverse that, then you can do it down here, inside, and that will do all the effects to the inside of the mask. So I want it to be the outside of this mask. So that's pretty good, just like that. I'm going to use the brush tool. I'm just going to add a bit more exposure on the sides here. So you can play around with the sliders to get the effect that you want. I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can also you can change all like the sharpness if you want. Split toning, I like to use a bit of the split toning. Say I want to change the highlights. Say a bit of pink or purple here at the saturation. You can see there all of that is doing is changing the hue of the highlights, and I like to normally play around with this a little bit, maybe a little bit in the shadows also. I'll probably put that into, maybe make it a bit cooler in there. Okay. This is just a quick edit just to show you can do that. Lens correction, you can do the distortion in here, or you can just wait until you're back into Photoshop. Normally I just wait. So once you press OK, it's going to just go into Photoshop and it's going to save those changes. So that's just the basics there. I'm not going to go into any more detail. So I'm going to do another HDR photo quickly. Just go to Automate, merge to HDR Pro. It's going to ask me for the files. I'm going to browse, and I will do, maybe I'll do this forest. So this one I shot 9 photos, and they're all different exposures. So I'll just open all these and I'll show you. So open, okay. Okay, so it's opened in HDR Pro. I recommend shooting your HDR or your multiple exposures on a tripod. So I shot this scene on a tripod, so they all should be exactly the same. So you can see down here I have 9 different photos. The middle one here is the exposure, the correct exposure, and then I have 4 overexposed photos and then 4 underexposed photos. So you can see all the different levels here. So the different exposures here were attained by shutter speed, so changing the shutter speed. So you can do it with your aperture, you can do it with your ISO, but this one was just the shutter speed. Maybe I'll do another tutorial that will go into how to capture multiple exposures. So I'm just going to again tone in the Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, so it's opened up in Camera Raw now. So I'm just going to hit auto. It does a pretty good job, just the auto, but then I'm going to adjust the sliders to the look that I want. So then I'll add a few different filters, normally depending on the look that I want to achieve. So once you're done in here, you just want to hit OK and it will go into Photoshop. So that's just a quick edit into how you can create an HDR photo in Photoshop using the HDR Pro and Adobe Camera Raw. So I'm going to do another edit on how you set this up on your camera. Till next time, cheers.